In 2016, Omar Mateen, a sympathizer to ISIS, walked into the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida. It was a gay nightclub in Orlando, Florida. Opened fire, killed 49 people. The media, without hesitation, rushed out of the gate to declare it a homophobic hate crime. He was attacking the gays. Therefore, it was a hate crime. It turns out that Omar Mateen was sympathetic to ISIS and chose to shoot up the nightclub, not because there were gay people there, but because it was a nightclub filled with freedom-loving Americans, and he wanted to stamp that out, pledging himself to ISIS. The media couldn't help themselves, though. They had to rush in with the narrative, the narrative first. And the same thing happened in Atlanta. We have a young man who stormed Asian massage parlors, gunned down mostly Asian women. Hate crime, violence against Asians is on the rise. Did you know that the hate crimes against Asian Americans in this country are not being perpetuated mostly by white people? It's actually most of the Asian hate crime in this country comes from Northern California at the hands of young black men. Those are the facts. Don't hate me for pointing out the facts. That's the reality. This isn't white supremacy against Asians. It's actually non-white crime against the Asian American community. This was a white guy. Also, if there's one thing white supremacists tend to be, they tend to be honest about what they believe. What's his name? Derek Roof, who shot up the AME church in Charleston, wanted to start a race war. All the white supremacists are always very open about wanting to start a race war. And in this case, you've got young pervy shooter with a sex addiction and a porn addiction thrown out of his parents' house, blames the Asian massage parlors for it, can't get his happy ending, and decides to end their lives. It had nothing to do with race. It had everything to do with his sex addiction. And yet the media and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and the Democrats can't help themselves. It's got to fit their prescripted narrative. Andrew Sullivan actually wrote about this in his latest piece, When the Narrative Replaces the News. The massacres at 3 massage parlors in the Atlanta area this week, leaving 8 human beings dead, others injured, and their families scarred, were horrifying. Read this deeply moving story. But this story is also deeply instructive about our national discourse and the state of the American mainstream and elite media. The story's coverage is proof, it seems, that American journalists have officially abandoned the habits of attempting any kind of objectivity in reporting these stories. We're now in the enlightened social justice world of moral clarity and narrative shaping. The media immediately had to seize on race because every story has to be told from an intersectional standpoint now. What is intersectionalism? Well, it comes from critical theory, and it believes that every individual is part of a group, and dominant groups are suppressive, moralistic, mean groups, and they oppose and oppress other groups, and we must elevate the oppressed over the oppressor. And this guy was white and a shooter and a Christian, and therefore he's from the most dominant group, therefore the most oppressive group, white male Christians. And so we must elevate the spa workers' stories over his, and that means we must tell it from a race angle, a white supremacy angle. Well, that was the beginning of the week. By the end of the week, it turns out, it really wasn't a white supremacy shooting. It was a Christian virgin shooting. That's what it was. The guy had pent up sexual frustration thanks to Christian sexual orthodoxy. We got to shut down the church now. At the beginning of the week, they were attacking white people. At the end of the week, they're attacking Christians. And in the minds of the media, it's the same thing. They can't help themselves. They cannot tell the truth. Now, here's the worst part about it. How many people do you think on the left believe that this shooting was racially motivated? I would venture to say an overwhelming majority of the people on the left believe that this shooting was racially motivated. Why? Because that was the media's first hot take out of the gate. White shooter must have been white supremacy. By the end of the week, it's Christians. And to the left, it doesn't matter. White supremacists, Christians, same thing. The New York Times running stories fairly explicitly tying them together because they can't help themselves. Because they now don't put facts first. They put narrative first. And the narrative is every story has to have a victim and a victimizer, an oppressor and the oppressed. And the story the media tells must be from the victimizer oppressed against the victim and oppressed against the victimizer oppressor. And the easiest angle for the media to go with is race.